Real quickly, for those that are new to the group or haven't been here before, the Exchange Club is a community service organization with general purpose to try to contribute to the prevention of child abuse. We are civically engaged in the community to adopt a highway, as I mentioned at the beginning. So we do that. We do philanthropic, just had our golf outing, raised $6,000 to try to give that money to the community and the different organizations that further that cause.
We gave away flags last Saturday, and it was a lot of fun.
To kids at Burger Farm, right?
Yeah.
And it's all. They wanted to play.
I don't blame them.
Some of it contributed money.
Oh, that's right.
So we'd like to obviously welcome our two candidates here for Hamilton County Commissioner, Andrew Pappas and Todd Portune, and start with a coin flip to see the format. What we're planning on doing is doing up to 10 minutes for an initial introduction of who the candidates are, what their goals are, what they want to do for the community, followed up with a question and answer where each candidate will be asked the same question, going alternating back and forth. 2 minutes to answer, 2 minutes for the other candidate to answer, with a 1 minute rebuttal period afterwards. If more time is needed, obviously we can be flexible. So, with that, who wants to call it?
Todd, call it.
All right. Tails.
Tails it is. First or second?
I'll defer.
There's a reason. We've done this a few times.
Yes. All right, so with that, Andrew, if you'd like to take the podium.
Or which side do you want, Andrew?
Anything you, whichever one you need.
Which copy was mine, Dan?
Right there in front. One without the
That
tail.
one? This one right here?
The caribou one.
Okay, well, here, I'll go to the other side, Andrew.
Up to you, bud.
Stay there. You're good.
Thank you, Dominic.
Well, I don't know that, first of all, I don't know that I'm going to take the entire 10 minutes. I can guarantee you I probably won't. That's a long time, so thank you. First of all, thank you for having me here. If you don't know who I am Andrew Pappas. I am currently a trustee in Anderson Township, president of the Board of Trustees, and the opportunity came available for this position, and after some deep thought for me to consider the honor of running for county commissioner, I decided to step up to the plate and make the challenge, because no matter what we've done here in Anderson Township and no matter what we do, we're still in Hamilton County, and I think it's important that we maintain good conservative representation and control of the commissioner board for Hamilton County, because as I said, we're in Hamilton County and we're so affected by the decisions made by the county. And most importantly, if you don't know my history, I'm a small business owner. My business is almost right across the street on Beachmont. I was located for years and years down at 8 Mile that we were renting a spot. Then the opportunity came along to make an investment in the township, and I bought the property that I'm currently located on, did some improvements to it. Dennis, we were neighbors there in that center. Did some improvements to it and spiffed up an empty, dilapidated building, and have it now as a viable running business that stays pretty busy and is central to the township's economic core. My history, my father came to this country, gosh, I got to remember what year it was. It was just after the war, so it was 1946 or 7. Came to this country on a Liberty troop transport ship, and he still has a photograph of that ship on the wall in his office. Single screw, single engine, cranked them out by the thousands. And that actually won the war. Those ships were sunk by the hundreds by the Germans. But because we were able to build 2 for every one that they sunk, we actually were able to keep England alive and survive until we made it into the war. And then we transported a lot of raw material across the Atlantic. Well, a lot of immigrants came back to this country on those ships. And the one thing he described as a young man driving on that ship or riding on that ship was they weren't designed for comfort. And they had a single screw and a single engine right in the middle of the ship. And they tended to do this a lot. They just tended to wallow quite a bit. He said it was the worst 2 weeks of his life. He threw up. My dad gets seasick, and I get that from him. Don't enjoy. I'm an avid scuba diver back in the day when I lived closer to the diving locations. And I would remember thinking as I'm going out on a boat, anyone here ever been seasick? It's probably the worst thing you could ever have, isn't it? It's not good. But anyhow, I diverge from my story, but which I'm prone to do. But I remember thinking as I'm going out there, there's nothing worse than this, but then once you're underwater, it's so beautiful, it was worth a trip. But he summed it up in these words. He was just violently ill for 2 weeks on the boat, couldn't eat. You know, you really don't want to do anything, you just want to kind of curl up in a ball. But when they got to the harbor in New York, because he did come through Ellis Island, you know, he saw the Statue of Liberty, and he was, you know, a family, young family with nothing. And it was really quite a moment for him. He still remembers it. And the funny thing is that he came to this country with nothing, literally a suitcase, and the signs weren't in Greek. He spoke no English, but he had one thing. He was a young boy, but he went to work almost immediately. And he's now a successful retiree. He lived the American dream. He worked hard. He didn't get anything from government. Government was pretty much out of his way because the government intrusion into your lives at that point wasn't as much as it is today. And there was no program set up for him, and he just worked hard and saved his money and hard work and 2-3 jobs, you know, weekends, everything else. And now he's a comfortable retiree down in Houston, Texas. And that's always left an imprint on me. That's my mindset. That's how I approach government. That's what we've done here, I think, at the township level. We've had to survive a lot of cuts from the state. And although some people have inferred lately that Anderson is in a financial crisis, that's not true. We are getting by. And as all townships have had to struggle with getting by with less and making ends meet and making tough decisions, we've done that. And Anderson Township is now the most desirable, one of the most desirable communities to live in here in Ohio. So you should be proud of that. And that's under not necessarily a result of our leadership, it's a result of such good prior leadership we've had in the township, and I feel we're continuing that today. I'd like to bring that same mindset, same perspective to county government. Most importantly, I think that it's important. How am I doing on time, don't it? I won't take up the whole thing. Maybe I will.
You can take more.
I know you.
Inside jokes.
Very inside joke. Please don't. But anyway, I will say this. Where the heck was I? Anyway, no. I think that it's most importantly that we have a small business representation on commissioner boards. Small business still employs the vast majority of people in this country. Everybody might have a dream someday of either opening up a home-based business and expanding that into something, or having that next idea that nobody's thought of and hitting that home run and becoming the next Bill Gates or whomever. You might want to leave your job working for a big company and be your own boss. I think it's important that we have someone that understands what it's like to meet a payroll, meet a budget, never been late, never asked my employees, hey, don't cash this check this week, I'm short. Small business owners are the last people paid out of their business. Your employees come first. And I always try to think what it's like, you know, for government, people in government to make decisions, and they don't have any idea how those decisions affect businesses' everyday lives, or people's everyday lives sometimes for that matter. And if we don't make Hamilton County economically attractive to having businesses locate here, who's going to work here? I mean, it just is what it is. Now, right now we face some large challenges at the county level. MSD is the biggest one that we face. We all have seen our sewer bills go through the roof the last several years, and you know what, there's more to come on that. I would like to have more of a business perspective on the decisions made that affect MSD. Government is not a business. It's not to be run as a business. However, there should be some business perspectives brought into government, because it's clearly, I think, the pendulum has swung too far the other way at all levels of government. So that's a perspective I'd like to bring to county government. That's why I'm running for commissioner. This is we've run a good race together. We haven't gotten, there's no personality conflicts here. You know, I don't have anything against Todd personally. It's just a challenge, and I think that we're both better off for it, because I know that he's run a good race, and we've had some good exchange of ideas. And you know, as iron sharpens iron, competition is good at all levels. So that's why I'm running, and that's why I'm here. So thank you, and pleasure to be here.
Were you over?
No, I was under, and you're not taking that extra time.
Well, that's the inside joke, folks, is, yeah, I do have a reputation of talking, sometimes for a long time, and Andrew has accused me of that on this campaign. That's about as personal as it's gotten.
That is.
But it's an accusation that actually fits, so I don't deny it. But in recognition of that, I'm actually timing myself here so that hopefully I'll be able to, if I can start it, I'll be able to stay on time. There we go. Come on now.
You want me to do it?
Would you?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
All right, there you go.
Hold on.
Time you're wasting your first minute.
Oh, stop. There you go. Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
Cooperative.
It's a
nature.
Republican phone.
Well, yeah, there you go. Good morning, and thank you all for having me out here today. It's great to be back. I'm no stranger to Anderson Township or to this senior center, or to the issues that affect the people of the township. So I'm delighted to be here today to talk about why I am running for re-election this year, to discuss a lot of the major issues that are facing us, and to share a little bit about myself with all of you, for those that don't know about me or what my background is, although I think a lot of people do. I have been in office 8 years on the Cincinnati City Council. I'm completing my 4th term on the Hamilton County Commission. I'm very proud of my service. I've been very effective both as a municipal legislator and as a county commissioner, largely working from the position of the minority, but have been viewed generally across the county as the idea person. It's a person who does bring the solutions to the table, who works across all political aisles, bipartisan manner, developing the relationships, rolling up my sleeves to work with people to get things done in the best interest of the people of the county, and not to do things based upon partisan interests in that nature. And it's one of the reasons why I've been reelected as many times as I have, and why my vote totals have continued to go up, is because people have recognized that that's what I'm all about. I'm about what is best for Hamilton County and doing things in a prudent, fiscally conservative manner. I was born and raised in the county. When I was born, my family lived in Price Hill on the west side of the county. My folks moved to Groesbeck in Coleraine Township not long after I was born, so that's really where I grew up, was in Coleraine Township. Graduate of Coleraine High School. I went away to college, Oberlin College in northern Ohio, and largely because of their academics, but also in part because of athletics. The track coach at Oberlin, who recruited me there, was an Olympic gold medalist, and I wanted to run for an Olympic gold medalist, and did so. I also played football while I was at Oberlin. I was better at track than football, but I enjoyed both experiences. Of course, I didn't have any professional career after that. I came back to Cincinnati, went to law school at the University of Cincinnati College of Law, and then following that settled here in Cincinnati. I've lived all over in the region. I've lived downtown, I've lived on the east side in Walnut Hills, East Walnut Hills, lived in Clifton for a while. Currently I live in Green Township, where I have raised my family. I have 3 kids, adult twins, boy, girl. They're in college. They're both juniors in college. One's at Ohio U, one's at UC, and then I have a 16-year-old daughter who is a freshman at Oak Hills High School, and she has Down syndrome. So she's been held back a couple of years, but is probably the biggest joy in my life. All our kids are, certainly, but if you've ever known a Down syndrome child, you know that they are nothing but pure love, and she has been an inspiration to me. You know, we talk about doing more with less. I've lived a lifetime of doing more with less. You know, Andrew mentioned the Liberty ships. My father rode one of those Liberty ships from the United States to France in the summer of 1944, and hit the beaches in the south of France in August of '44 and fought his way through France and Germany through the end of the war. He was just a regular GI, but ended up being a platoon sergeant at the end of the war. He earned 3 Bronze Stars for his combat service, among other decorations, and was really a great inspiration to me. My father and my mother were both public employees, public servants. They were teachers. And so I grew up with a real understanding that being involved in public service is a great calling. It's a wonderful thing to do, and I still think that, in spite of the knocks that are given to politicians, and there are a lot of politicians who deserve the criticism that they get, but there are also a lot of people who view the job as a true public service and approach it that way, and that has always been the manner in which I approach public service. I talk about doing more with less. When I was 14, my father died, so we didn't have a breadwinner in our house, and I went to work at age 14 to help. At 5 minutes, Andrew, thank you.
It turns off.
Oh, it does.
Go, keep talking.
Thank you. So I went to work at age 14 to help pay the bills in the household, and I've been working hard and full-time ever since. I have been a small business, still am a small business owner, and since I'm in private legal practice, currently I'm a sole practitioner, so believe me, nobody gets paid until the bills are paid and the money comes in, so I get that. I was also a partner in a Cincinnati law firm, and had to make sure the payrolls were met and the like. So I've lived a life of understanding how to run a business and how to do more with what you've got. And believe me, I live that every day in just figuring out how to do more with less and to be able to compete as an individual who has never let anything hold him back. I love what I do as a county commissioner. I've been very effective, as I mentioned, but I approach things, and here's why. I approach the issues facing the county by trying to figure out how we can do more with less and get the biggest bang out of every buck that we have, because I understand that the resources we have are precious, and we have to use those resources judiciously and carefully and prudently. So, for example, a few years back, we had a convention center that needed expanded downtown. Well, I generated and created the funding plan on how we were going to fund that convention center. And we're doing it with visitors' money that comes into the region, not being paid for by local taxpayer dollars. It's visitors that come here that pay for it. But I did it in a way that we not only expanded the Duke Center, but we had money that was available to also expand the Sharonville Convention Center when they were ready to expand that in Sharonville. It also funded a new Northern Convention and Visitors Bureau that generated a lot of new business in Hamilton County, especially in our northern communities. And it also generated a fund that we have been able to invest in other facilities, capital projects in places like Blue Ash and Springdale and Norwood, that are also bringing new tourism business to the table. Worked very hard on public health issues like infant mortality. We have one of the highest rates of babies die before their first birthday. An initiative that I created called Cradle Cincinnati is working to reduce the rate that babies die before their first birthday here in Hamilton County. And it's not only doing that, we're not only reducing infant deaths for the first time since we've been measuring this, going back decades, but it's also improving maternal health care and infant health care and our public health care system overall. Hamilton County is a service organization, largely. We don't pass laws, and that's a good thing. What we do is we implement the policies of the state. And it's our job to make sure that we are able to implement them across the board, that we are there to keep the lights on and the doors open for the people of Hamilton County. At the height of the recession, I was the president of the board. And we downsized county government in order to balance the budget, but we right-sized it, and we had furloughs, and we had shared services, and we pooled resources, and we collaborated with people. Size of county government today, because of what I did and what others have done, is down by a fourth. Our spending is down a third. But we did it without raising any taxes to balance the budget or anything like that. And in fact, the last tax increase that was approved by the board, by the Republican majority, I might add, was a tax on utilities in order to pay for an essential governmental service, which is 911 communications. I opposed that, and I was able to successfully repeal that tax So the fact is, I did not believe that we should raise taxes for essential governmental service, and we haven't. Andrew mentioned MSD. It's clearly the biggest issue that's facing us all. I'm sure we're going to get into that more here this morning. All I'll say is that I've been fighting that issue for a decade. I've gone to Washington a dozen times to stand up to the EPA. I've testified in front of congressional committees 5 times to change EPA policy, to develop new legislation that, if it's passed, will save us $1 billion in sewer costs. And I'm proud to say that the Senate adopted its version of that about a month ago, and the House, when they come back from the election recess, is going to take the issue up, and will be acting on it this year, and we think it's going to pass and will be signed into law during the lame duck session. I worked with Steve Shabbat and also with Rob Portman in a bipartisan manner to draft that legislation that is now before the Congress for adoption. So I thank you for the privilege. I ask for your vote November 8th, and again, it's a pleasure to be here today. Under 10.
Yeah, like my 2 seconds.
I did it.
You guys have to bear with us. We're together quite a bit, so we're trying to have some fun with this.
All right, first question is for Andrew, since we've talked about, I'll go to this one first. But there's been a lot of press recently about the dysfunction of the Metro Municipal Sewer District. How do you view the role of Hamilton County Commissioner in this matter, and how would you partner with the City of Cincinnati regarding management of the water and sewer district? And keep in mind that all these questions have been brought forth by all the members in the group, of which we do have some registered Republicans and Democrats who submitted questions.
Oh, that's great. Well, here's the deal. The simple fact of the matter is, the reason things are so messed up right now at MSD is because of this agreement that was entered into long before any of us were in office. But one person owns it, another person operates it, and that's just a pretty dysfunctional way to run any organization, because they've benefited from, sadly, from that. By when there's a problem or anything, they do this. It's not my fault, it's his fault. It's not his fault, it's my fault. Never works out well anywhere that's a organizational situation. So as a county commissioner, I would push for one entity to own and operate MSD. And personally, I think the county's demonstrated a better job of owning and operating things than the city of Cincinnati has. We don't have to go far in news stories to see how the city of Cincinnati clearly has demonstrated a lack of maybe the financial restraint that the county has. So I think that there should be one entity owning and operating MSD, so that's answerable to the ratepayers, and that would help clean up a lot of the mess at MSD to make them accountable to the voters. The other issue I'd like to say is that, you know, this MSD problem situation does affect me more than most, because absolutely my business uses water, and any business, that manufacturing business, uses water. I've seen my rates go from about $700 a quarter over $2,000 a quarter. That's a huge jump. Now, it affects single income people, fixed income people. I couldn't imagine. I do know some families of 4 or 5 kids, and they're like, why is my water bill $400 a quarter now and $500 a quarter? It's ridiculous. And I couldn't imagine being a fixed income person and sitting there worrying about, am I going to water the lawn? Am I going to take a shower? I mean, I know that's silly to say, but think about it. Their bills have been going up and up and up and up, and they're on a fixed income. And if their water bill goes up, they have to do something else with less, maybe less food or turn the heat down. That's just not right. So I'm out of time, but I think one person owning and operating it is the solution, and accountable to the voters.
We give Mr. Portune, how do you view the role of Hamilton County Commissioners in this matter?
1 minute, is it? Do I get
2 minutes.
Oh, I get 2? Okay, great.
1 minute each after.
All right, thank you. Thank you, sir. Well, I think you're going to find a lot of agreement between us on this. Clearly, the almost 50-year-old, what we refer to as the 68 agreement, is the problem of a lot of the mess at MSD. It does generate a lack of complete accountability and no transparency. And it has regressed to the point where the county, which I also believe has been the more responsible entity in connection with this, we have caused MSD's budget to be reduced by over $50 million annually because of a sharp pencil that we've applied to the budget as recommended to us by the city. We have called the city on recommendations that have been overbilled or over-recommended, saving hundreds of millions of dollars on MSD projects because we applied a sharp pencil to the projects when they came to us. And it got to the point where we would ask for information, the city hasn't provided it. We had to submit Freedom of Information Act requests to the city of Cincinnati to get information on a district that we own pursuant to this agreement. I mean, it reached a level of, it's a crazy level. I'm a bit at a disadvantage to talk about exactly what I want to do with that, because we are currently in negotiations on an early termination of the agreement with the federal court, and the federal judge, Mike Barrett, has issued a gag order on all of us participating in it that we can't talk about what we're talking about. So all I can say with respect to that is I do believe that the ultimate outcome has got to be that there's one entity that everybody understands and knows is completely in charge, so that there is accountability, a clear line of decision-making, clear line of transparency with respect to how that is done. But regrettably, I can't give you any more details other than just sharing that. But again, I think we're in fair agreement on how it should end up.
You can take the next question first.
We're ready to move on to the next one.
Sure.
As you know, there's still some aggravation in the community for the way the two professional sports stadiums designed and built for private enterprises were financed by the entire county through a sales tax, while only downtown property owners and business owners see the financial benefits of such projects. What is your opinion of the stadium deals and the future of public spending for the benefit of select private or commercial business owners?
Well, let me tell you, I got elected in 2000 because of stadium deals. And it was not to be too partisan here, but Andrew has suggested that maintaining a Republican majority is critical for conservative fiscal leadership. It was a unanimous Republican county commission that brought us the stadium deals. And that whole debacle of the sales tax, and then the failure to keep tabs on the spending, the lease agreement with the Bengals that is considered by every objective observation the most generous deal in all of the NFL. And I challenged that as a challenge to the incumbent county commissioner, who was the architect of that deal and was successful in defeating him. I brought new controls to the table that have resulted in us being able to bring in the Reds ballpark, Great American Ballpark, on time and under budget, and those same spending controls have resulted in every other major county project that we've been involved in also being on time and under budget. So I opposed the deals. First of all, the simple answer to your question on that, I even tried very, very hard to renegotiate the deal with the Bengals, even to the point of filing a private taxpayer suit myself to try to overturn the deal with the Bengals. So I've done everything I can on that. But we have seen some results in that. Just this past week, we had the ribbon cutting of the GE Global Operations Center downtown. We wouldn't have gotten that deal done and GE to commit to come here if the Bengals had not waived the height restrictions that existed. And there were only 2 commissioners that were able to vote on this because Commissioner Monzell was conflicted because he works at GE. The Bengals knew that if they held up on that height restriction, that I was going to veto the deal if they were asking too much. So they came in at a much more reasonable level, and we were able to close the deal and get the deal done. So, long term, they're going to be asking for more to renew the leases. We've got to apply that same sharp pencil, the same kind of controls that I've introduced, and make sure that the owners don't fleece the public like happened in the late 1990s.
Thank you.
Oh, wait. All right. Yeah, we all are in agreement on the fact that the deal stunk. I mean, let's be honest. And although Todd said that, Bob Benninghouse was the guy you were running against and defeated, and it was not a good deal. And he was claimed to be a Republican, and there are Republicans that sometimes say they're Republicans and aren't fiscally conservative. So Todd ran a campaign based on that issue, and the funny thing is that kind of began to get that one deal when I saw how the county residents were being fleeced at the benefit of people that maybe were located downtown or in one geographical area, got me really involved in politics, and it was the impetus behind me getting more civically involved, because I didn't think it was right. And honestly, we all know that deal was not good. The funny thing about that is we see other cities, I compare and contrast the Bengals Stadium, and I'm not here to bash now the stadium, the way it's designed, but we spent all this money on a stadium that can't host a Super Bowl. But all these other municipalities and entities, and one was my hometown, spent less money to redo their stadiums, and then they had the benefit of having a Super Bowl there, which really did bring economic impact to that whole region, not just that downtown area. So it was a bad deal, and it never should have been done. It should have been more tightly controlled, but at the end of the day, the person responsible for it was held accountable by the voters and voted out, and you know, that's the right thing to have happen. You want me to stay up for the next one? You want to rebut any of that?
No. Seem to be in agreement on that. All right, Andrew, your question, here we go. In every election cycle, we hear about politicians who want to create jobs. Not that either of you on record for saying such, but how do you see the role of the Hamilton County Commissioner in creating new jobs?
My attitude on that is I don't know that it's actually the role of any government agency to create jobs. I think that what the perspective I bring and have brought to our level of government is we want to create the environment that it's attractive for jobs to be created by businesses, by private entity, by private industry. We want to, that's why I always say when people ask me, you know, for example, here in the township, why are there so many X type of stores on Beachmont Avenue? And I won't necessarily mention which ones they are.
Dry cleaners?
No, not dry cleaners. You can't swing a cat without hitting a tire store on Beachmont Avenue, I'll just say that. I don't want to offend the cat crowd, but you know, the simple fact of the matter, it's not government's role to pick the winners and losers. It's government agency, it's government's role to create the environment that businesses feel like it's a good place to locate it. So we create the environment, and I think that's the role any government agency have, is we create the environment where it's economically viable for a business to choose to locate there. But we don't get to pick the winners and losers. So low tax rates, low utility rates, MSD, for example, would create the environment because we are in competition with a lot of surrounding counties and areas. I mean, you know, we know that Claremont is about a quarter mile, half a mile down the road. And the simple fact of the matter is were I to be able to hook a wrecker onto my building and drag it a quarter mile down the road, that $2,100 a quarter utility bill for water and sewer would go down probably to about $500. That's significant. Now think about an industry or a business that uses a larger amount of water, because I really don't. They're going to look to locate in Hamilton County when they have Butler, Warren, Claremont, Northern Kentucky to compete with. I mean, that's our job, create the environment where it's economically attractive to locate there, and the jobs will follow.
Mr. Portune, same question. How do you see the role of the Hamilton County Commissioner in creating jobs?
Well, again, I think philosophically you're going to see some agreement here in the sense that, you know, in terms of actually creating jobs, the government doesn't really create them unless government is expanding and hiring more people in that sense, and that's really not our function from a job creation standpoint. But we do have a role to play, and it is in creating the environment that is conducive for industry to locate or to expand, new jobs to be created and to start up. You get that from improving the regulatory process. We've done a lot of work with buildings and inspections, for example, to make that a lot more friendly here in Hamilton County than it ever was in the past. When we interview companies about why they want to come to an area, they do discuss costs of business, costs of operations. So, you know, taxes and utilities play a role, but they're not the number one thing in the minds of business. They are also looking at wanting to know that this is a community that is investing in itself, that has a positive outlook and a positive future. They want to know, do they have a skilled workforce that can qualify for the jobs that they are making available? They want to know that their employees can get to and from work. And especially there's a lot of employees, either they lack the ability to get to and from work because they lack personal private transportation, or a lot of our younger professionals don't want to own cars. They want to ride public transportation as a choice. So for the future, we need to make sure that we have a functioning regional transportation system that works, that is implemented in a sound, conservative, fiscally conservative manner, that it can pay for itself, but we need to work on making that happen. And in terms of site development, access to industrial sites in 2015 alone, there were 64 businesses that left because they couldn't get access to a development site. So we need to make sure that we provide and make that access available so their employees can get there, and so the goods they rely on can be shipped in and the product they manufacture can be shipped out.
Can I get 1 minute if I want to rebut that? It's not a rebuttal, it's just a clarification, a bit of a rebuttal. When I hear, now, that's where some of the differences, Todd and I, come out. When I hear things like investment, when government says investment, I hear spending. And with, you know, I understand that there is a role of government to provide and build infrastructure and whatnot, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's the role of government necessarily to decide that a 20-something-year-old shouldn't have a car, and then we should build all this mass transportation to allow him wherever he wants to live to drive and, you know, not drive, but to catch, you know, basically we have to pay for the fact that he made a lifestyle choice of not owning a car. That concerns me a little bit because life is about choices, and you know what? It's not government's role to provide everything to everyone. And that's the difference in a little bit where you start to see a divergence of our ideology. So that's my only retort. If you call it a rebuttal, that's fine, but that's where we part ways quite a bit, is the role of government in that instance.
You're free to rebut.
Thank you.
Continue or next question. Your choice.
Yeah, I'm going to take a minute here if I can before we get to
He's going to rebut the rebut.
rebut the rebuttal. I think it's allowed, though, under the rules.
Double rebuttal.
Okay, there you go.
You don't see it often, but it's a double rebuttal.
Double rebuttal. Yeah. No, sir, sir reply,
That's
Andrew.
right. I'll reset your time.
Thank you. Here we go. Well, again, just a minor nuance on this. I'm not saying that we have to provide for everything, everybody. That's clearly not what I said. But we do have to make judicious investments. If you look at what Butler, Claremont, and Warren County are doing around us, they are investing a certain amount, up to $3 million a year annually, to apply to transportation improvements, infrastructure enhancements, things of that nature, that then get leveraged for other monies from the state and federal government that are allowing access to be provided and business to locate. It's one reason why, if you look where the jobs are being created in Claremont County, follow the State Route 32 corridor. And that's all about the eastern corridor. It's all about transportation enhancements and improvements. They're making those investments, and Hamilton County, regrettably, has not, despite my efforts to try to get the county to do that so we can compete with the counties around us. So if we want the jobs to be here, we're going to have to make limited investments that will create the infrastructure for business to want to locate.
All right, Todd, next question.
Oh, yeah, I should stand up here.
Yep.
Sorry.
Hamilton County is a sprawling, mostly urban and suburban community comprised of many cities, villages, and townships. In which geographic area and on what issue will you be focusing most of your political capital and attention?
All of them. They're all important. That's been my service as a county commissioner ever since I arrived. When I got here in 2001, a lot of people were concerned. Here's this Cincinnati city councilman, and he's going to come and only focus on the city and only be interested in the city. Well, that has not been my service. That's clearly not been my record. All 49 jurisdictions in Hamilton County are important. They all contribute to the fabric of what our county is all about. There is such diversity in our regional and local and countywide community, and that's our strength. That makes us very wealthy as a community. That's our attraction. People want to have different lifestyle choices, different places to live, different opportunities, and so it's critical for the county to work collaboratively with all of the local jurisdictions. As county commissioner, I have worked and have a record of enhancement, improvement, problem solving in every single one of the 49 jurisdictions in the county. I've worked very hard to provide shared services opportunities, and am continuing to do that. We have a standing committee on shared services with the city of Cincinnati. I actually tried to get one done with the townships and the municipalities dating back 5 years ago. Didn't get support by the board, but I'm still hopeful that we can do that so that we have a standing committee that focuses on ways that we can pool our resources and work together to share. I think the county has a responsibility to fully fund things that are countywide responsibility. That's why I led the effort to improve our emergency warning system and to have the county take over the financial responsibility for that and not to bill that back to the townships or the municipalities in the county. It's why I believe our 911 communication system, we have to fund more of that than we do as a part of county operations and not bill it back, because that's a charge that the townships and the small cities can't bear. So, you know, I'm going to continue my service in believing that every single one of our 49 jurisdictions is critical to the success of the county, and continue to work in and out of every single one.
Question to you, Mr. Pappas, in which geographic area and on what issues would you be focusing most of your political capital and attention?
Well, I mean, all of them. I mean, that's the answer, because you represent all the counties. Sadly, I think that as a township and as a suburbanite, whatever, I think that I get the feeling sometimes that maybe too much attention has been focused in one geographical area, and it's downtown. I mean, it really is. I mean, you know, I'm not knocking it per se, but I feel like as someone that doesn't live nor work downtown, sometimes I get the feeling, and maybe you do as well, that, you know, we're kind of forgotten by the county. It's like, you know, send us your money and just don't really worry about things. Now, you know, it's frustrating when you're trying to do something in the outer areas, pick Greene, Anderson, wherever, and yet to go build a project or do a permit, you've got to go trampsing downtown to, you know, pay homage to Caesar, to go walk through the bureaucracy of downtown to get your permit so that you can pay fees to the county so you can go build your project out in suburbia. I mean, I think that attitude needs to change a little bit. I think we need to recognize the fact that it's very important for all of the county to be represented. If I was a commissioner, one of the first things I would do is I would recommend that, and I think this might have been done in the past at some point, but I know it's not been done lately, I would rove the county commissioner meetings around the townships. I would say that, you know, we'll have a meeting downtown, we'll have a meeting in Anderson Township. I know we have the facilities to hold it. Greene Township has the facilities to hold it, so that people could come to a county commissioner meeting that otherwise might not want to come or might not have the opportunity to come. Go to the people, don't make the people go to you. That would be my first attitude. Now you say that's really a silly little step. Well, it's a step, and it makes the people know that they're represented. And I think that's where it starts. Rebut?
Yeah.
I know you're going to, so go ahead.
Yeah, just a brief one.
Oh,
Yeah, I won't even take a minute, Andrew, believe that.
okay.
Well, yeah, two things real quick. One, I think one of the reasons downtown gets gets attention in people's minds is the press tends to focus on that. And it's easy to highlight things in one geographic area, and they do. Second, there's no question that downtown is the economic engine for the region. The vast majority of revenues that are generated in this region are generated downtown. So it does get attention in that way. But if you look at the attention that we devote to all the other jurisdictions combined, there is much more work that is done in support of and in favor to the other 48 jurisdictions in Hamilton County than the one single neighborhood of a downtown. So, you know, I don't think it's good to, you know, pit one area against the other in that manner. I had one other thing to say, but honestly, I can't remember it now.
And you took the full minute.
And well, I did. Now I did. So, anyway, it'll come back to me. But,
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, due to some of the transportation issues here in Hamilton County, getting from the east to west side, and the late start, we're out of time for today. So I'd like to thank both candidates for
Thank you,
coming
Dominic.
today.
Thank you all very much.
With that, we're adjourned.